3. I can see you're already standing. I came to cast fire upon the earth. How I wish that it was already ablaze. I have a baptism I must experience. How I am distressed until it's completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, I have come instead to bring division. From now on, a household of 5 will be divided, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. Father will square off against son, and son against father. Mother against daughter, and daughter against mother. And mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. The word of God for the people of God. Be seated.
So when I was a kid, every once in a while we'd see these specials on TV, like National Geographic specials or something, and usually it was some remote village somewhere, or there would be something super interesting going on, something that we as, in my little neighborhood in rural Tennessee, had never imagined participating in. And so one of those things was fire walking. I remember tuning in one time and they had these fire walkers. Like, whoo, now. That's something when they can walk on fire. Now, I was a Boy Scout and we had campfires all the time. And not once did I take a notion to walk through that thing. I'm just saying. And what possessed that these people to walk through fire? Well, I imagine the first one probably had a lion chasing him or something, right? And so, and he moved pretty quick through the fire. But then they started slowing it down just a little bit and, getting a little bit braver and a little bit tougher maybe. And so before long it became a rite of passage. But no matter how you look at it, I mean, still, I look at a fire, I'm out roasting my marshmallows and hot dogs and stuff, and I'm not sitting there going, man, I could walk through that. No, I'm going to do it right now. Nothing really causes me to want to do that. I mean, really. Now, it's kind of interesting that we do wonder how it happens, right? And I've done a little research on this, and it seems like there are several reasons why they think that this is happening. That people can actually literally walk across fire coals. And so one of the reasons is that when you've got this hotbed of coals, especially if it's been there for a little while, you will have these coals that tend to collect ash on top, right? I mean, we've all been to a barbecue. We've seen that happen, right? So whether we walked across the barbecue or not, we've seen the ash on top of the coals. And so what happens is the ash, as it gets a little bit thicker and thicker, like the longer the fire goes, then what happens is that you build up more and more ash. Well, really, that kind of creates a heat barrier between the walker and the real heat source, right? So that's one of the reasons why they think that happens. But then you've also got perspiration or sweat on the bottom of somebody's feet that tends to also create a barrier or keep that heat from going directly into somebody's feet. Now, I would imagine if it was me walking across it, I'd have pretty sweaty feet. You're thinking about walking across this fire, you're probably starting sweating before you even get near the fire. And so I imagine that makes good sense as well. Now, there's also the conductivity part of it. And they say it's sort of like, imagine like you're cooking a cake, baking a cake in the oven, right? And the oven, we'll say, is 180 degrees that you're cooking the cake at. So when you open the oven, okay, and that'll vary depending on the altitude and various things, right? So when you open the oven, you can actually stick your hand in the oven and it's hot, right? But it's okay. You're probably not going to get burned. You may not keep it in there for an hour and a half. But you're probably not going to burn yourself from just sticking it in the oven. And then you may, so the air doesn't have a lot of heat conductivity either. It actually is a bit of a heat insulator. And so we think, okay, well, maybe, and you might have done this as well, where you go, is my cake ready? Can I kind of push on the top of it a little bit, right? Is it going to spring back? And so if it springs back, well, it might be ready. And so when you touch the cake, does it actually burn you really bad? No. Again, because it's sort of this cross between the air and something that might be a little bit more solid, so you don't burn yourself. But say you miss, you're going to poke the cake and test it out, and you hit the side of the aluminum pan. Then what happens? Yeah, we'll use church language and say, ow! And so you hit that hot pan, and you may pull your finger out with a blister on it or something, right? And so the conductivity makes a big difference too, or insulation, depending on how you look at it. So they figure that all those things wrapped together makes it possible for somebody to walk across what seems to be super hot coals without really burning their feet. But I don't know. Still seems kind of scary to me and sounds a little bit risky. Now, the next time we have one of these campfires out in the restoration house, out behind the restoration house, you're probably not going to see me climb up on top of that little fire pit there and give it a go. But I can take video on my phone if one of you wants to try. And we'll make sure that we get that on Facebook. But these walking on fire, it sounds risky, doesn't it? It sounds really scary. And so when we hear these words from Jesus that says, I'm bringing fire to the world, that sounds risky. And it sounds scary. In our culture, we've got it pretty good, don't we? We've got dial-up AC and heat. We are a pretty comfortable people. We're pretty protected people. And so when we think about somebody bringing fire on earth, that doesn't sound too good to us. It sounds really scary. But I like the way Helen Keller put it. So she said, security is mostly superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience security. Avoiding danger in the long run is no safer than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. And then Jesus tells us, take up your cross and follow me. That sounds risky, doesn't it? That sounds scary. But Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. And as many of us have experienced before, loving our enemies, loving our neighbor, can feel like walking on coals. Living grace-filled lives is not the easiest thing in the world. So Paul reminded us that scandalized believers, what scandalizes believers, often passes for nonsense to the world. In other words, Jesus saying, take up your cross and follow me. Why would Jesus want to go to a cross? When the rest of the world looked at that, certainly in his day, it looked like that was, the worst of the worst went to the cross, right? It was scandalous. And so why would followers want to follow a hero that died on the cross? But Jesus was showing us a new paradigm. He was reminding us that when the world catches on fire, a new paradigm can happen. And I believe this new paradigm comes out in ways, and in Jesus' day, in the sanctuaries that he went into, they had a sacrificial system. They also had what was called a scapegoat. Nothing was so bad that you couldn't put it off on the scapegoat, right? Nothing was so bad that you couldn't make a sacrifice and be okay with it. But these things tended to compound themselves. And so Jesus, once and for all, did away with that. Jesus, once and for all, brought grace to the forefront. And you know what? That can be scary. That can be risky. Whether we're told to love our neighbor as ourselves or to love our family members. When we're used to passing off retribution on other people, living a life of forgiveness and love can seem pretty scary. Jesus wants us to know that this, in fact, can be risky. That, yes, in fact, when we're living grace-filled lives, we can get hurt. And sometimes it's going to be tough. So Moses, when he goes up to the burning bush, and he was just attracted to it, right? It's like, what is going on over there? Let's go check that thing out. And Moses goes over and sees this burning bush, and then a voice comes out and speaks to him, right? And it's God. Well, if Moses hadn't taken his sandals off, he probably would have hightailed it out of there, wouldn't he? But then as God draws him into conversation deeper and deeper and deeper, he hears that Moses is hearing God calling him to do some pretty risky things, some pretty scary things that involve freedom, setting my people free, and telling them who God is. And Moses, all along, he's trying to get out of it, right? He goes, no, I'm not your guy. I'm just some shepherd that's out here in the field. And God says, no, Moses, you need to go. Yeah, but I can't really talk very well. And no, Moses, you need to go. And no, God, I'm just not the right guy. And then finally he says, well, who do I tell them sent me? And God said, tell them that I am sent you. God says, I am who I am. Not I was who I was, or I will be who I will be, but I am who I am. And when you walk through the fire, I will be with you. So in those times when it seems like fires are burning all around us, and we're going to scorch our feet for sure, God reminds us that God is with us. And no matter what the worst thing is that happens, it's never the last thing for children of God. Jesus tells us that following him can be risky. Jesus tells us that following him can be scary. But he is with us all the way to the end. I love one of the songs that we sang this week. It speaks so well to this passage, and it reminds us of the story of Daniel in the lion's den. The song that we sang in Vacation Bible School, and we sang in our literacy camp, and it was probably the favorite song of the kids, wouldn't you say? Roar. Even when the lions roar. The song goes, I will not be shaken. I will not be moved. All my hope is in you, God, even when the lions roar. When the world is catching on fire, God is with us. Thanks